Hey guys, welcome to Thoman's Guitars and Basses. As you can see, I'm sitting in my living room again and made myself a nice cup of tea. That means it is question and answer time again. Let's get into it. So the first one is from Vasily Kochnev. Julia, there are many different pickup types, but does it really matter? I mean, is there any songs genre you just have to use specific pickups for, or you can play everything using anything? How a beginner player can make a choice. When you are a professional bass player and you're a lot in the studio or you're playing a lot of cover songs, I think it is super important that you know what kind of bass you should bring to the session or to the gig. For example, when a producer is calling you and he wants to record a new song and the bass line should be in the style of Good Times by Cheek, for example, then I have to know, okay, that bass line was played by Bernard Edwards and he played a Music Man Stingray with flats on it. So I'm going to bring a bass with a humbucker, or maybe I've got a Music Man Stingray at home with Flatwounds. When you are a beginner, I think you can play every bass line on every bass, because first of all you have to concentrate on your timing, your phrasing and the groove, because if that isn't working, the perfect bass sound won't help you to sound great. But generally, if you've got two pickups, you've got more sound options. So if I would have to buy my first bass again, I would definitely go with the jazz bass. The next question is from Cliff Hendrickson. Hey Julia, I know you don't always play with a pick, but when you do, what gauge of thickness? Cheers. Hi Cliff. I started playing with the pick because of Bobby Vega, and he's playing with 0.73. So I'm really used to that thickness and it's the most comfortable for me. But when I'm playing like heavy rock, metal, 8 notes, I prefer to play with 1 millimeter. The next one is from Nick Google. Hi Nick. Sorry Julia, I think you made a mistake. You said you played the round wound strings first, but the flat wound string sounds round. So the round wound strings sound flat? That's a good question. I know that's really confusing. So practically all bass strings are made of two components. You've got the rep wire and the core wire. And the difference between flats and rounds are in the rep wire. So when you have got flats, for example, you can't feel the ridges under your fingers. It's totally flat. When you've got round wounds, you can feel all the ridges of the individual reps under your fingers. And sound-wise, when you're playing round wounds, you've got more high end. It's super cool for slapping, for example, and flat wounds have a reduced high end and emphasize the mids and lows. So the next question is from Marvelous Gabriel. What do I need to know before picking up a bass? Hello Marvelous Gabriel, we just put out a new video about what you should know before picking your first bass, but if you want to know more about the mindset, I would say you definitely have to know that the bass is one of the coolest and most awesome instruments you can pick. It will take you a lot of time and a lot of effort, and it's like a life experience. So like with every instrument, there is not a point where you said, okay, yeah, now I managed to do that. I'm at the end point. There is no end point. And I think that's so cool about it, because you can learn a lot, and the bass would be like a friend that will stay with you for your whole life. And last but not least, before you pick up the bass, dance a little bit. The next question is from Tim Schneider, and I think that's the first time I'm sure I pronounced the name right. He's asking, why did you never learn to play the guitar professionally? I really love the guitar and I just bought one, but I learned cello first, then bass, and I don't have the feeling that I have time or enough time to learn another instrument properly, because I still have to learn so much on the bass and on the cello, and I want to get better, so I didn't want to play another instrument where I'm like really half good, but I really enjoy to play just some chords or stuff like that, and making my own backing tracks, for example. But really one of my life goals is that maybe when I'm 60 or 70, that I could play a Pat Metheny song. So that would be a life goal for me. And I would not change a thing right now, because in a band context, I would not want to play guitar or drums. I want to play bass. I really love to play bass in a band or in a big band, for example. I think that's the coolest instrument, and I want to go with the bass. So the last question is from Liam1205. He's asking, what are some of the most and some of the least useful right hand bass techniques? I think one of the most useful right hand bass techniques is muting, because a lot of the time you will play finger picking, and when there are some strings left that are ringing, it will never sound great. Not with finger picking, not with slapping or anything like that. So I think muting is really important for every bassist. And the most useless, and this is just my opinion, and I think maybe a lot of you will say no and disagree, but at least for me, I would say it is double thumping. So I think you could need double thumping when you're playing a slap solo, for example. It is really cool and totally awesome. But in 2021, there are not a lot of slap bass solos. There are not a lot of bass solos, and there are not a lot of slap bass solos. So I think it's totally okay when you don't manage to have a proper double thumping technique. But that's just my opinion. And I think it also depends on what is hip at the moment, because back then with Stanley Clarke and Larry Graham, slapping was so hip and so important that this was an important right hand technique. But nowadays not a lot of people are using it anymore. So I think it also depends on what is hip at the moment. Thank you guys for all your questions. I really enjoy to answer them. And sometimes there are really cool conversations going on in the comment sections. So thank you very much for your thoughts and for sharing your experience. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. If you've got any more questions, leave a comment down below. And I hope to see you soon in one of the next videos. Bye!